The rain battered the city with force, creating rivers in the streets and a dense fog that made it hard to see just a few meters ahead. Ethan Reynolds, a millionaire accustomed to a life of private jets and exclusive parties, adjusted the windshield wipers of his Porsche with growing irritation. It was Christmas Eve, but to him, the date was just a bitter reminder of everything he considered superficial. He had no one to celebrate with, just his work, his empire, and the emptiness that relentlessly pursued him. As he turned a dark corner toward downtown, his eyes caught something that made him slam on the brakes. On the drenched sidewalk, a small figure was struggling to balance a paper bag while running barefoot in the torrential rain. Ethan froze for a moment, but something inside him compelled him to step out of the car. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out as the rain soaked his expensive suit. The boy, no older than 7, stopped running. He looked at Ethan with a mix of distrust and surprise. His big brown eyes were filled with a fear Ethan recognized immediately, the fear of someone who had faced more than they should at such a young age. "You don't need to be afraid. I just want to help," Ethan said, crouching to the boy's level. "Are you alone?" "I'm going home," the boy replied, but his hesitant gaze revealed there was more to the story. The bag he was carrying suddenly tore open, spilling a pair of old clothes and a small can of soup onto the ground. The boy scrambled to pick everything up, but Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let me help." "What's your name?" he asked as he gathered the items. "Oliver." "Oliver, it's dangerous to be out here alone, especially in this weather. Come on, I'll take you home." Oliver hesitated, but the warmth in Ethan's voice was enough to convince him. He climbed into the car without another word, shivering from the cold. As they drove, Ethan noticed the boy's tattered clothes and the uncomfortable silence that filled the car. "Does your mom know you're out this late?" Ethan tried to start a conversation. Oliver didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stared at the rain on the window. "My mom works late. She doesn't know." The sadness in Oliver's voice did something Ethan didn't expect. It stirred a spark of compassion in him, something he thought he had lost long ago. When they reached the outskirts of the city, Ethan was struck by the harshness of the place where Oliver directed him to stop. He got out of the car with the boy and followed him to a dimly lit apartment. The door was opened by a young woman with long brown hair and eyes that, though tired, still shone brightly. She froze when she saw Ethan standing there, clearly distrustful. "Who are you? What are you doing with my son?" she asked, pulling Oliver close to her. "I just helped your son. He was out in the rain alone." "Oliver," she exclaimed, visibly worried, ignoring Ethan for a moment. "How many times have I told you not to go out?" "Sorry, Mom." Ethan stood still, observing the interaction between mother and son. Something about the firmness in her voice and the care with which she hugged the boy intrigued him. He was used to women who saw him as a blank check, but this one was different. She didn't seem remotely interested in him. "Thank you for bringing him back," she finally said, turning her attention to Ethan. "But we're fine." "It doesn't look like you're fine," he replied without thinking. Silence hung between them. Ethan realized his response had been ruder than he intended, but the woman remained composed. "Even so, we'll be fine," she said firmly. "Good night." Before he could respond, the door closed, leaving Ethan standing in the rain again. He returned to his car, but the image of Oliver and his mother stayed in his mind. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than the usual emptiness. Curiosity. The next morning brought timid rays of sunlight streaming through the windows of Ethan Reynolds' luxurious apartment. He sat at the edge of his bed, sipping strong coffee while replaying the events of the previous night. The image of little Oliver and his mother was still vivid in his mind, especially her expression, a mix of gratitude and distrust he couldn't quite decipher. As he left for work, Ethan picked up one of the toys he had bought for a distant nephew and placed it on the passenger seat. Something told him he wasn't done helping Oliver and his mother. He drove back to the rundown building where he had dropped the boy off the night before. The apartment door was slightly ajar, and he could hear voices inside. "Oliver, we can't keep the lights on all day, understand?" The female voice, clearly Oliver's mother, sounded tired but patient. "Sorry, Mom," the boy replied, his tone full of remorse. Ethan knocked lightly on the door. The voices stopped, and soon the woman appeared, wearing the same defensive expression as the night before. "You again?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Sorry to show up unannounced, but I brought this for Oliver." He held up the gift as a peace offering. Oliver's mother looked at the toy with hesitation. "We don't need charity." "It's not charity," Ethan replied with a faint smile. "Think of it as a thank you. He trusted me last night, and that's not something I take for granted." She hesitated for a few more seconds before finally accepting the toy. "Thank you, but seriously, we're fine." "You said that yesterday too, but looking around, it doesn't seem like everything's fine." The words came out more bluntly than Ethan intended, but he didn't apologize. "Listen, Mr. Reynolds. Ethan Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, I know people like you enjoy helping others to feel better about themselves, but we really are fine," she said, her voice carrying a firmness that contrasted with her tired expression. Ethan looked at her for a moment. He was used to women doing everything they could to please him, but this woman wasn't interested in anything he had to offer, and that fascinated him even more. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophia Carter." "Well, Mrs. Carter, do you have any idea what Oliver went through last night? He could have been seriously hurt, or worse." She pressed her lips together, clearly uncomfortable. "I know, but I'm doing the best I can. I work all day and—" Sophia stopped, as if realizing she was explaining herself to a stranger. "This is none of your business." Before he could respond, Oliver appeared, holding the toy with a shy smile. "Mom, can I keep this?" Sophia looked at her son, and her shoulders relaxed. "Yes, sweetheart." "See? I'm not so bad after all," Ethan said with a playful tone, earning a small smile from Oliver, but not from Sophia. "What do you really want?" she asked, serious. "Just to help, and maybe make you an offer." Sophia frowned. "An offer? Oliver needs a better place to grow up, and you need more stability. I can offer that." "You want to take us out of here?" The disbelief in her voice was evident. "Yes, you can stay at my house for a while, at least until things get better for you." "That's ridiculous." Sophia took a step back. "It's not as unusual as it sounds. You'll have your own space, and I don't know. Maybe I'll feel a little less useless this time of year." Silence lingered for a few seconds. Sophia seemed to be battling internally, while Ethan waited with a patience he didn't know he possessed. "Why?" she finally asked. Ethan took a deep breath, unsure how to answer. He could say it was just compassion, but the truth was more complicated. Maybe it was Oliver's smile, or the fact that Sophia seemed to be one of the few people who didn't treat him like a walking lottery ticket. "Because I can," he said simply. Sophia continued to stare at him, her distrust evident. "I can't just trust you, Mr. Reynolds. And I'm not asking you to, just for a chance." Oliver looked up at his mother with hopeful eyes. "Please, Mom." Sophia finally sighed, exhausted. "We'll think about it." Ethan nodded, recognizing the small victory. As he returned to his car, a smile spread across his lips. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something genuinely good, even if he didn't completely understand why. 2 days had passed since Ethan's visit to Sophia and Oliver's small apartment. He didn't know exactly why he was so eager for a response. To him, it was just a matter of time before she accepted his offer. After all, who would refuse the chance to leave that place? But Sophia Carter was anything but predictable. When Ethan's phone rang that morning, he answered immediately, recognizing the number he had left with her. "Mr. Reynolds?" Sophia's voice was as firm as he remembered, but there was a slight tremor, as if she were reluctant to speak. "Yes, this is he." "About your proposal," she began hesitantly. "If the offer still stands, we accept." Ethan felt a mix of surprise and satisfaction. "Of course it does. You can move in today if you'd like." "Today?" Her tone was a blend of disbelief and nervousness. "There's no reason to wait. I'll send someone to help with your bags." Before she could protest, Ethan ended the call, already organizing everything in his mind. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled up in front of Sophia's building. Oliver was excited, holding his backpack as he looked at the vehicle with wide, sparkling eyes. Sophia, on the other hand, seemed nervous, almost regretting her decision. "I don't know why we're doing this, Oliver," she murmured, mostly to herself. "Because it's going to be fun, Mom," the boy replied enthusiastically. The SUV's door opened, revealing Ethan, dressed casually, something unusual for him. He stepped out of the car and walked to the door with a smile that seemed warm, though measured. "Ready?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Let's go." The drive to Ethan's mansion was quiet. Oliver, however, couldn't contain his excitement, pointing at every car and building they passed. Sophia, on the other hand, kept her arms crossed, her eyes cautiously observing everything. When they arrived, the sight of the estate took Sophia's breath away. The mansion was grand, yet it didn't flaunt a vulgar kind of luxury. It was sophisticated, with perfectly manicured gardens and an architecture that blended classical and modern styles. "Welcome," Ethan said as he held the door open for them. Oliver dashed inside, exploring every corner with childlike curiosity. Sophia lingered at the entrance, clearly uneasy. "This is a lot." Ethan shrugged. "It's just a house." "No, this is a castle." He laughed. "Then you'll be the queen." The comment made Sophia roll her eyes, but she couldn't hide the faint smile that crept onto her lips. As Ethan showed them the rooms he had prepared, Sophia remained distant, carefully observing everything. She knew accepting the offer was a risk, but she couldn't ignore the sparkle in Oliver's eyes. "Why are you really doing this?" she finally asked when they were alone in the living room. Ethan leaned back on the couch, arms crossed. "You've asked me that before. And you never answered." He remained silent for a few seconds, looking at her with an expression more serious than she expected. "Maybe because I'm trying to figure it out." The response caught Sophia off guard, but she didn't push further. There was something about Ethan she couldn't decipher, something that made her both suspicious and intrigued. As the evening fell, Oliver ran through the garden, illuminated by small Christmas lights. Sophia stood on the porch, a cup of hot tea in her hands, while Ethan silently approached. "He looks happy," Ethan commented, leaning against the railing beside her. "He hasn't seen a place like this since his father died." Ethan turned his face to her, surprised by the sudden revelation. "I'm sorry. It's been a while." Sophia shrugged, looking at Oliver with a sad smile. "That's why I do what I can, even if it's not enough." Ethan wanted to say something, but the words escaped him. He wasn't used to comforting anyone. And yet, this woman, so strong and vulnerable at the same time, stirred something in him. "You're safe here," he finally said. "That's what matters." Sophia looked at him, and for a brief moment she saw something different. Maybe Ethan Reynolds wasn't just the arrogant millionaire she had imagined. Sophia and Oliver's first morning at Ethan's mansion was a mixture of amazement and discomfort. Oliver woke up early and was already exploring the vast garden with contagious energy, while Sophia lingered in her room. Despite the luxury surrounding her, she felt out of place. In the dining room, Ethan was reading the newspaper with a cup of coffee in hand when Oliver came running in with a toy car. "Good morning, Mr. Reynolds," the boy exclaimed, his smile so big that even Ethan couldn't help but return it. "Good morning, Oliver. Are you enjoying the house? It's amazing. There's a lake out there." "That's a pool, Oliver," Sophia said, entering the room with hesitant steps. Ethan looked up from the newspaper, observing her. She was wearing a simple dress, but her poised demeanor made her seem more elegant than many women he had been involved with. "Good morning, Sophia," he greeted warmly, catching her by surprise. "Good morning. Please have a seat. Breakfast is ready." She hesitated, but eventually sat down. The table was filled with fruits, bread, and everything she could imagine. "This is excessive," she murmured, picking up only a piece of toast. "I like options," Ethan replied with a smile that bordered on teasing. Oliver, on the other hand, seemed in heaven, piling his plate with everything in sight. "Slow down, Oliver," Sophia cautioned, though there was a glimmer of amusement in her eyes as she watched her son's delight. Ethan observed the interaction between mother and son, and something inside him seemed to soften. It was rare to see such a genuine connection, so full of love, and it made him question the choices he had made in his own life. "What do you have planned for today?" Ethan asked, trying to sound casual. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know I had the freedom to plan anything." "Of course you do. Consider this place your home while you're here." "We're not here to enjoy ourselves, Mr. Reynolds. We're here because it seemed like the best thing for Oliver." "And does it seem like the best thing for you too?" The question caught Sophia off guard, and she looked away. "I'm not sure yet." Ethan didn't press further. He could sense there was something in her that didn't trust easily, and for some reason, he respected that. That afternoon, while Oliver played in the garden, Sophia decided to explore more of the mansion. She stumbled upon a massive library with shelves that reached from floor to ceiling, filled with books of every genre. "Do you like to read?" Ethan's voice startled her. Yes, but I don't have much time for it." "Well, here you can." He walked into the room, picking a random book from the shelf. "This was my mother's favorite," he said, looking at the cover with a melancholic smile. "She seems like she must have been an incredible woman." Ethan nodded. "She was. And she would have loved to meet both of you." Sophia remained silent, surprised by his sudden openness. It was as if, for a moment, Ethan had let his guard down, revealing a more vulnerable side she hadn't expected. "Thank you for having us here, Ethan. I know this isn't a normal situation. No, it's not, but maybe that's what I needed. Something different." They looked at each other for a moment, the silence filling the space between them. Sophia felt something that scared her. The possibility of trusting him. Later that night, after putting Oliver to bed, Sophia went out to the balcony again. The view of the mansion illuminated under the stars was breathtaking, but she barely had time to take it in before Ethan joined her. "Are you settling in?" he asked, handing her a glass of wine. "A little. It still feels surreal." Ethan chuckled softly, gazing at the city lights in the distance. "It feels surreal to me sometimes, too. I don't believe that. You seem so at home in this world." He turned to her, his expression a mix of humor and seriousness. "And do you think comfort means happiness?" Sophia didn't answer immediately. There was something in his eyes that seemed to reveal a void she recognized. "No," she finally said. "I think comfort is just comfort." The silence between them fell again, but this time it felt more familiar. "Sophia, if there's one thing I can promise, it's that you're safe here." "I hope you're right, Ethan, because I'm not very good at asking for help, and even worse at trusting someone." Ethan didn't reply, but the look he gave her seemed to promise something even he didn't fully understand. The days at Ethan's mansion turned into a peculiar routine for Sophia and Oliver. For Oliver, it was a fairy tale, filled with discoveries and adventures. But for Sophia, the grandeur of the place was a constant reminder of her position as an outsider. Despite Ethan's attempts to create a welcoming atmosphere, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was intruding into a world that wasn't hers. That morning, Sophia found Ethan in the kitchen, cooking something on the stove. The scene was so unusual that she stood in the doorway, surprised. "You cook?" asked, raising an eyebrow. "Occasionally. I don't always want to rely on the chef." Ethan turned, flashing a casual smile. "Pancakes? That's unexpected." He chuckled, placing a stack of pancakes on a plate and handing it to her. "Let's just say I have more skills than I let on." Oliver ran in, excited, and the table quickly became a scene of laughter and stories. Sophia found herself relaxing, something that hadn't happened in a long time. Ethan was good with Oliver, something that continued to surprise her. Later, Ethan invited Sophia for a walk in the garden. While Oliver played with a dog Ethan had brought to the house, the two walked side by side in a comfortable silence. "I wanted to ask you something," Ethan began, breaking the quiet. "Ask away. Why were you so reluctant to accept help?" Sophia stopped, looking at him seriously. "Because help often comes with conditions." "Do you think I expect something in return?" "I don't know." She looked away. "But to be honest, I'm used to paying dearly for anything that seems too good to be true." Ethan felt the weight of her words but didn't push further. Instead, he shifted the conversation, trying to lighten the mood. "What did you think of the library?" Sophia smiled slightly. "It's amazing. It feels like every book has a story beyond what's written inside. My mother was an avid reader. She believed books were the only thing that truly enriched the soul. She must have been an admirable woman." Ethan nodded, a glimmer of longing in his eyes. "She was. And I believe she would have liked you." The comment took Sophia by surprise. Before she could respond, Oliver appeared, holding a flower he had plucked from the garden. "Here, Mommy. For you." Sophia knelt down and accepted the flower with a genuine smile, while Ethan watched the scene with something close to admiration. That evening, Ethan found himself alone on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. He was lost in thought when Sophia appeared, wrapped in a shawl. "Is everything okay?" she asked, approaching hesitantly. Ethan looked at her as if deciding whether to open up or not. I've been thinking about something. What is it? How strange it feels to have you here. Not in a bad way, it's just different. Is different bad? He chuckled softly, shaking his head. No, I think it's good. Sophia stared at him for a moment, trying to understand the man before her. He seemed so distant, yet so close at the same time. Ethan, I don't know if I've truly thanked you yet. You don't need to. But I want to. She stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his. What you've done for me and Oliver, it's something I'll never forget. For a moment, the air seemed to shift. The closeness between them created a tension that both felt but neither dared to break. It's the least I could do, he finally replied, his voice softer. Sophia looked away, her heart racing. She knew she was beginning to let her guard down, and that scared her. The next morning, the sun shone brightly, illuminating every corner of the sprawling property. Sophia walked through the garden with Oliver, who held a small kite made from improvised materials Ethan had gathered for him the day before. The boys' laughter filled the air, but Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Meanwhile, Ethan was in his study, reviewing documents, or at least trying to. His mind was restless, constantly drifting back to Sophia. He knew he was starting to feel something he hadn't expected, something he didn't know how to handle. At that moment, an unexpected call pulled him out of his thoughts. Ethan, my dear, are you all right? His sister Margaret's voice sounded concerned. I'm fine, Maggie. Why do you ask? I heard there's a woman and a child living with you. Is that true? Ethan sighed, knowing his family wouldn't take long to find out. Yes, it's true. And what are you doing? This doesn't sound like the Ethan Reynolds I know. Maybe it's the Ethan Reynolds I'm trying to be. Margaret was silent for a moment, clearly surprised. I hope you know what you're doing. Ethan hung up, feeling the weight of the conversation. He knew his family would see the situation as a threat to his reputation, but for the first time, he didn't care. Later that day, Sophia found Ethan sitting on the balcony. He seemed lost in thought, something she had noticed happening often lately. Are you okay? She asked, sitting beside him. Ethan looked up, surprised by the interruption. Just thinking. About? He hesitated before answering. About how I got here. And how you and Oliver came into my life. Sophia sensed the sincerity in his voice and realized there was something deeper in what he was saying. Sometimes life puts us in situations we never expect, she said, trying to comfort him. And you? How did you get here? He asked, shifting the focus. Sophia took a deep breath, clearly reluctant to open up. It wasn't easy. After Oliver's father died, I had to figure things out on my own. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, just to keep a roof over our heads. And you did it? That's admirable. It's not that simple. She looked away, gazing at the horizon. Sometimes I feel like I'm just surviving, not living. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes locked on hers. Maybe now is the time to change that. Sophia didn't answer immediately. Ethan's gaze was intense, full of unspoken promises, and she felt her heart race. Later, as she tucked Oliver into bed, Sophia reflected on Ethan's words. He seemed genuinely interested in helping her, but she still wasn't sure if she could fully trust him. When she returned to the living room, she found Ethan waiting with 2 glasses of wine. I thought you might need this, he said, handing her a glass. Thank you. They sat on the couch, the silence between them more comfortable than ever. Sophia, I need to ask you something, Ethan said suddenly, breaking the moment. What? Do you trust me? The question caught her off guard. She looked at him, trying to decide what to say. I don't know, but I think I'm starting to. Ethan nodded, seeming to accept her answer. I want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm not doing this out of pity. Then why are you doing it? He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. Because I want you to stay. Sophia was silent, feeling the weight of his declaration. This is complicated, Ethan. Maybe, but it doesn't have to be. They stared at each other for a moment, the tension between them rising once again. Sophia knew she was nearing something she couldn't ignore, but she also knew it could change everything. The morning began with an unusual atmosphere in Ethan's mansion. The sun seemed less bright, and the once comfortable ambiance was now heavy with tension. Sophia noticed it as she passed Ethan in the hallway. He appeared distracted. as if something weighed heavily on his shoulders. Oliver, on the other hand, was blissfully unaware of the mood. He spent the day playing with the dog in the garden, his laughter echoing throughout the property. Sophia held on to moments like those, trying not to think too much about how Ethan was becoming closer, not just to her but also to her son. That afternoon, Sophia found Ethan in the library, staring at one of the shelves but clearly not focusing on the books. "Are you okay?" she asked, stepping in cautiously. Ethan turned to face her, but his eyes lacked their usual spark. "I need to talk to you." His serious tone made Sophia's heart race. "What is it?" "I've been keeping something from you, and it's time to be honest." Sophia frowned, both confused and apprehensive. "Honesty is always a good idea, Ethan." He hesitated, running a hand through his hair in a nervous gesture. "Sophia, do you think I did this by chance? That our connection happened spontaneously?" She crossed her arms, sensing the beginning of an uncomfortable tension. "I don't understand where you're going with this." Ethan took a deep breath, clearly struggling to find the right words. "When I saw Oliver that night, I noticed something about him. Something I'd seen before." Sophia remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "Oliver's father, he was my friend, one of the few I had. We grew up together, but we drifted apart over time." The impact of the revelation hit Sophia like a punch. She stared at Ethan, incredulous. "What?" "I knew who you were, Sophia. Not right away, but the moment you mentioned his name, I knew." Sophia stepped back, as if she needed space to process the information. "So all of this, bringing us here, helping Oliver, was out of guilt?" "No," Ethan responded, more emotionally than he expected. "I didn't know how to react at first, but the more time I spent with you, the more I realized it wasn't about guilt. It was about you." "That doesn't make sense." Her voice was filled with frustration. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid of pushing you away." The silence between them was deafening. Sophia felt as though the ground was disappearing beneath her feet. "You lied to me, Ethan. All of this feels like a lie now." "It's not." He stepped forward, trying to reach her. "None of this is fake. I care about you, Sophia. About Oliver." She looked away, fighting back tears. "I need some time." Sophia left the library, leaving Ethan alone. He sat down in one of the chairs, burying his face in his hands. He had never felt so vulnerable, so powerless. That night, Sophia was in Oliver's room, watching him sleep. Ethan's words still echoed in her mind, but her son's peaceful smile reminded her of what truly mattered. Later, she returned to the balcony, where she found Ethan again, staring at the horizon. He looked lost, as if carrying the weight of the world. "I don't know if I can trust you, Ethan," she said, breaking the silence. He turned to face her, his eyes filled with regret. "I understand, but what I feel for you and Oliver, it's real, Sophia." She studied him for a moment, trying to decipher the truth in his words. "I don't know what to think right now. Just give me a chance to prove that none of this was in vain." The silence between them was heavy with tension, but there was also something else: hope. Sophia knew that, despite everything, she was beginning to lower her defenses, and that terrified her. Ethan's mansion seemed unusually quiet. Sophia avoided crossing paths with Ethan all day, but deep down, she knew she couldn't avoid him forever. The revelation of Ethan's connection to Oliver's father had shaken everything she believed about their relationship. Oblivious to his mother's whirlwind of emotions, Oliver played in the garden. He was happier than ever, but Sophia knew she had a difficult decision to make. Ethan had helped her, but trust, so fragile, now seemed to hang by a thread. That evening, Sophia asked to meet Ethan in the library. He was already there when she entered, sitting in an armchair with a glass of wine in his hand. He looked exhausted, as if the weight had drained all his energy. "You wanted to talk?" he asked bluntly. "Yes." Sophia closed the door behind her, taking a deep breath. "I think it's time we were completely honest." Ethan set the glass down on the table, his eyes locked on hers. "I'm listening." "I don't know what to think about what you told me." Her voice was steady, but full of emotion. "Part of me feels like all of this was manipulated, that you did what you did out of some sort of moral obligation." "And the other part?" he asked softly. Sophia hesitated, as if the words were difficult to say. "The other part believes that maybe you truly care." Ethan stood, walking over to her. "I do care, Sophia, more than I can express." She crossed her arms, trying to shield herself from the intensity of the moment. Why didn't you tell me from the start? Because I was afraid, he said, stopping a few steps away from her. Afraid that you'd never trust me if you knew. And you think lying helped? No, it was a mistake. But even so, everything I did was sincere. Sophia looked at him, feeling the weight of his words. This isn't just about you, Ethan. It's about Oliver. I can't risk my son's heart for something I'm not sure of. Ethan stepped closer, his gaze piercing. I don't want to hurt you or Oliver. I want you to stay. I want to be a part of your lives. His words hit Sophia hard. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to let down her walls and let Ethan into her life. I don't know how to trust you again, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan took another step forward, closing the distance between them. Then give me time to prove I'm worthy of your trust. The silence between them seemed to stretch for an eternity. Sophia's heart raced as she battled the walls she had built over the years. Ethan, she began, but her words were cut off as he leaned in and kissed her. It was a kiss filled with emotion, as if all the unspoken words were expressed in that moment. Sophia hesitated for a brief instant, but soon gave in, feeling a mix of fear and hope. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia looked at him with glistening eyes. This doesn't solve everything, she said, with a small smile. Ethan chuckled softly. No, but it's a start. In the days that followed, Sophia decided to give Ethan the chance to prove he was more than a millionaire trying to right a wrong. He began to show that his actions were genuine, not just with words, but with gestures. Oliver, for his part, seemed happier than ever, building a bond with Ethan that only reinforced Sophia's decision to stay. Months later, on the same balcony where so many conversations had taken place, Sophia gazed at the horizon as Ethan held her hand. You know this isn't a fairy tale, right? She said with a shy smile. I know, but maybe we don't need one. Maybe we can create something better. Sophia nodded, feeling for the first time that maybe love could be a choice, and she was willing to choose Ethan.
I never imagined that destroying a millionaire in front of 300 high society people would be the best thing I'd ever do in my life. But there I was, Magnolia Hartwell, Maggie to my close friends, of which there were exactly 3, standing in the center of Manhattan's most pompous ballroom, my second-hand dress stained with expensive champagne, staring down the most arrogant man I'd ever had the displeasure of meeting. And all because of a lemon tart. Let me rewind 6 hours. My best friend, Luna Chen, had landed her dream job as a sous chef at the Thornton Plaza Hotel. To celebrate, she insisted I accompany her to the annual charity gala the hotel was hosting. Maggie, it's going to be amazing. Free food, free drinks, and I got an extra invitation because I'll be supervising the kitchen. Free food were the magic words for a freelance illustrator who was 3 weeks behind on rent. The problem? Luna forgot to mention that the hotel owner, Dashiell Thornton, the Terrible, had a reputation for being colder than the North Pole and crueler than a vegan art critic at a steakhouse. When I arrived at the hotel, wearing the only party dress I owned, bought at a thrift store for $20, but it looked beautiful, thank you very much, I was immediately stopped at the kitchen entrance by a security guard who clearly thought I was an intruder. Miss, this area is restricted, he said, crossing his arms in a way that made his muscles look even bigger. I know. My friend works here, Luna Chen. She said I could. I don't have any Luna on my list. But she literally works here. She's the sous chef. Lance, let her in, a tired voice called from inside the kitchen. Luna appeared, in her impeccable white uniform and an expression of total panic. Maggie, thank God, I need your help. It's an emergency. An emergency, I discovered 10 minutes later, meant that the head pastry chef had a panic attack and abandoned the hotel, taking half the dessert team with her. There were 4 hours until dinner and 200 Sicilian lemon tarts to finish. Do you know how to make lemon tarts? Luna asked, desperate. Luna, I'm an illustrator. I draw food. I don't cook food. But you made that incredible tart for my birthday. That was store-bought that I decorated. But when your best friend is on the verge of a nervous breakdown, you do what you have to do. So there I was, improvising lemon tarts with the help of YouTube and a whole lot of hope. Surprisingly, they turned out decent. They weren't works of pastry art, but they were edible and, dare I say, tasty. Everything was going well until Dashiell Thornton showed up in the kitchen. I had seen photos of him in the magazines Luna left scattered around our apartment. But photos didn't do him justice. Dashiell Thornton was tall, over 6 feet, had perfectly styled black hair, storm grey eyes, and wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car, if I had a car. He also had a permanent expression of disdain that made it seem like he was constantly smelling something rotten. "What?" he said, and each word came out cold as ice. "Is this?" He was holding one of my lemon tarts. Luna paled. The rest of the kitchen staff froze. "It's a Sicilian lemon tart, Mr. Thornton," Luna murmured. "This," he lifted the tart as if it were a dead animal, "is not Thornton standard. Who is responsible for this aberration?" I felt my blood boil. Aberration. I had spent 3 hours making those tarts. "I did," I said, stepping out from behind the counter. His grey eyes turned to me, analyzing my dress stained with flour and meringue, my red hair escaping from an improvised bun. "And you are?" "Magnolia Hartwell. And that aberration is delicious, thank you very much." A deadly silence fell over the kitchen. Nobody spoke to Dashiell Thornton that way. His eyebrows arched millimetrically. "Delicious?" "Yes. Delicious. You know what? Try it." Later, Luna would tell me that this was the moment she was certain we'd be evicted from our apartment, because she'd be fired. But I was furious. Who did this man think he was? Dashiell Thornton picked up a fork, cut a tiny piece of the tart, and tasted it. He chewed. He swallowed. "Mediocre," he declared. "The meringue is uneven, the crust is soggy, and there's a bitter note in the filling that indicates incorrect cooking time. This will not be served at my event." "Sorry, Your Majesty," I said, unable to control myself. "But if we had a full team and not a last-minute emergency, maybe the tarts would be up to your precious Thornton standard. But you know what? They're made with care. They taste good. And if your millionaire guests can't appreciate an honest tart, then maybe they don't deserve any dessert at all." The entire kitchen held its breath. Dashiell stared at me. And then, to my surprise, a tiny smile, almost imperceptible, touched the corner of his mouth. "You're fired," he said to Luna, without taking his eyes off me. "What?" Luna and I shouted in unison. "No, wait!" I stepped forward. "This wasn't her fault. If you're going to fire someone, fire me." "You don't even work here," he observed, cruelly calm. "Then you can't fire me. But you also can't fire Luna because of something I did. I can do whatever I want. It's my hotel." And that's when I lost my mind. You know what you are. A spoiled tyrant who hides behind money and impossible standards because probably nobody has ever told you no in your life. You don't know what real hard work is. You don't know what it's like to have to improvise. You don't know what it's like to... Enough. His voice cut through my tirade. "You have courage, Miss Hartwell. Stupid courage, but courage. Because of that, I'll make you a deal. Come to the gala tonight as a guest. Publicly prove that your tart meets Thornton Plaza standards. If the guests approve, your friend keeps her job. If not..." He shrugged. "Well, I hope she has a good resume." And that's how I found myself 2 hours later being stuffed into an appropriate evening gown, courtesy of Luna, who knew someone, being pushed into the most intimidating ballroom in New York. Which brings me back to the present moment, me, standing in the middle of the ballroom, covered in champagne, because a waiter tripped over me while I was carrying a tray with my tarts. The tarts flew, the champagne flew, and Dashiell Thornton, on the other side of the ballroom, witnessed it all. Our eyes met. He began walking toward me, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea. "Miss Hartwell," he said, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. "It seems you not only cooked disastrously, but also served disastrously." Nervous laughter echoed around us, and I, Magnolia Hartwell, soaked, humiliated, and absolutely fed up, did the only thing that made sense. I picked up the last lemon tart from the fallen tray and placed it in his hand. Then taste it yourself, and tell everyone here if it's really as terrible as you say. In front of everyone. Unless you're afraid to admit that an aberration made by a common person is good. 300 pairs of eyes turned to Dashiell Thornton. And for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something different in those gray eyes. Something that looked almost like amusement. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. 300 of Manhattan's elite held their collective breath as Dashiell Thornton stared at the lemon tart in his hand, then at me, then back at the tart. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. What had I done? This man could ruin Luna's career with a single word. He could probably ruin my life too, just for fun. But I was done backing down. "Well," I said, crossing my arms despite the champagne dripping from my elbows. "Are you going to taste it, or are you too scared to admit you might be wrong?" A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Behind Dashiell, I could see Luna making frantic, stop-talking gestures, her face the color of fresh pasta dough. Dashiell's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he might throw the tart at me. Instead, he did something far more terrifying. He smiled. Not the cold, dismissive smile from the kitchen. This was different, dangerous, like a wolf spotting particularly entertaining prey. "You think I'm scared, Miss Hartwell?" His voice was silk over steel. "I'm never scared, especially not of dessert." He raised the tart, and suddenly every phone in the room was out, cameras pointed at us. Of course. Manhattan's most ruthless hotel mogul being challenged by a champagne-soaked nobody? This was social media gold. Dashiell took a deliberate bite, chewed slowly. His expression remained perfectly neutral, giving nothing away. The seconds stretched into eternity. Then he took another bite, and another. "Interesting," he said finally, examining what remained of the tart with something that might have been genuine curiosity. "The crust has a buttery complexity I didn't notice before. The filling," he paused, "is actually quite balanced. Tart without being aggressive, sweet without being cloying." Wait, was he complimenting my tart? "And the meringue," he continued, his gray eyes finding mine across the 3 feet of charged air between us, "while unconventional in texture, has a lightness that somehow works." I blinked. "So, it's good?" I didn't say that, but the corner of his mouth twitched. I said it was interesting. "Oh, for heaven's sake," a voice rang out from the crowd. An elderly woman in enough diamonds to buy a small country pushed through to the front. "Dashiell, stop torturing the poor girl. Is the tart acceptable or not?" "Mrs. Pemberton." Dashiell acknowledged her with a slight nod. "Don't you Mrs. Pemberton me, young man. I've known you since you were in diapers." She turned to me with sharp, intelligent eyes. "May I try a piece, dear?" Before I could answer, she'd snatched the remaining tart from Dashiell's hand and popped a generous bite into her mouth. Her eyes widened. Oh my goodness. She turned to the crowd. "Everyone, these tarts are divine. Whoever made these has genuine talent." And just like that, the spell broke. The crowd surged forward, all wanting to try the controversial dessert. Waiters who'd been frozen in place suddenly scrambled to bring out the remaining tarts from the kitchen. I stood there, stunned, as Manhattan's elite devoured my aberrations and declared them refreshingly unpretentious and charmingly rustic, and my personal favorite, authentically artisanal. Luna appeared at my elbow, her eyes shining with tears. "Maggie, you absolute maniac. You did it." "I can't believe that actually worked," I whispered back. "Miss Hartwell." Dashiell's voice cut through the chaos. The crowd had moved on, distracted by the dessert frenzy, leaving us in a bubble of relative privacy. A word. My stomach dropped. Here it came. The part where he found some other reason to fire Luna anyway. I followed him to a quieter corner of the ballroom, near floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline. "You embarrassed me," he said flatly. "You were going to fire my best friend over a tart," I shot back. "I was testing you." What? He turned to face me fully, and I realized with a jolt just how tall he was. I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. I never intended to fire Miss Chen. She's one of the most promising chefs I've hired in years. But when you stormed in, defending your mediocre desserts with such passion, he paused. I wanted to see how far you'd go. Anger flooded through me, hot and righteous. This was a game to you? You let me think. You made me stand here and you rose to the occasion spectacularly. His voice softened, just slightly. You have fire, Miss Hartwell. Real fire. Not the manufactured rebellion of people trying to seem interesting. Genuine courage. I stared at him, my anger warring with confusion. I don't understand. No, he agreed. You wouldn't. You're too busy being authentic to recognize how rare that is in my world. Before I could respond, Mrs. Pemberton reappeared, looking far too pleased with herself. Dashiell, I'm stealing this girl for the Pemberton Foundation Gala next month. We need her tarts. Actually, Dashiell said, his eyes never leaving mine. Miss Hartwell and I were just discussing an arrangement. We were? I asked. We are. He pulled a business card from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Come to my office Monday morning, 9 sharp. I have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? That dangerous smile returned. The kind that will either be the best decision you've ever made, or the worst. And with that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there with his card burning in my palm and the distinct feeling that my life had just become infinitely more complicated. I spent the entire weekend convinced that Monday's meeting would end with either a lawsuit or a restraining order. Luna, however, was convinced it was something else entirely. He likes you, she said for the 15th time Sunday night, sprawled across my bed while I tried on every outfit I owned. He does not like me. He thinks I'm an entertaining circus act. I held up a blazer. Too formal? Too funeral director. And yes, he does. I saw the way he looked at you. He looked at me like I was a particularly annoying mosquito. Exactly. Luna sat up, grinning. A mosquito he couldn't stop watching. Maggie, the man ate your entire tart. Dashiell Thornton. The guy who once sent back a Michelin-starred dessert because it was uninspired. I threw a pillow at her. You're delusional. But Monday morning, standing outside Thornton Plaza's executive offices in my best professional dress and borrowed heels, I wondered if Luna might be onto something. Why else would he want to see me? The receptionist, a woman with perfect posture and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, directed me to the top floor. Mr. Thornton is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like ascending to my execution. When the doors opened, I stepped into an office that screamed money and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art that probably cost more than my entire life, and sitting behind a massive desk, looking unfairly handsome in a crisp navy suit, was Dashiell Thornton. Miss Hartwell. Punctual, I appreciate that. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please, sit. I sat, trying to project confidence I absolutely didn't feel. Let's get to it then. Are you suing me? He blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. It transformed his entire face, softening the harsh lines and making him look almost approachable. No, I'm not suing you. Though I should for emotional damages. Do you know how long it's been since anyone spoke to me the way you did? I'm guessing never. Precisely. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with those unsettling gray eyes. Which is exactly why I want to hire you. I'm sorry, what? The Thornton Plaza is undergoing a rebranding. We're expanding into boutique locations, targeting a younger, more diverse clientele. We need to feel more authentic, less stuffy. His mouth quirked. Your words, I believe, were pompous. I felt my cheeks heat. I may have been harsh. You were honest, and honest is exactly what I need. He slid a folder across the desk. I want you to consult on our new restaurant concepts. Help us develop menus, ambiance, marketing materials. Your illustrations, your eye for what's real versus what's pretentious. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. You want to hire me? The woman who called you a spoiled tyrant? Especially because you called me a spoiled tyrant. He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. Everyone around me says yes. To everything. My board, my executives, my staff. They all nod and agree and tell me I'm brilliant. It's suffocating. But you? His eyes locked with mine. You don't care about my money or my power. You just care about what's right. That's invaluable. I opened the folder. The proposed salary made my eyes water. This is way too much money. That's the market rate for consultant work of this caliber. For 6 months of consulting? Mr. Thornton. Dashiell, he interrupted. If we're going to work together, you should call me Dashiell. The way he said his own name, low and smooth, did something weird to my stomach. Dashiell, I tested the word. It felt too intimate. I'm not qualified for this. I draw pictures of food. I made 1 batch of decent tarts. You made magic, he corrected. You took a disaster and turned it into the most talked about event of the season. Do you know how many catering requests the hotel received this weekend? How many people specifically asked about the girl who stood up to Dashiell Thornton? That's just novelty. It'll fade. Perhaps. He stood, walking around the desk to perch on its edge, suddenly much closer. Or perhaps you have something real that people are hungry for. Authenticity in a world of manufactured experiences. Courage in a room full of cowards. I swallowed hard. He smelled like expensive cologne and danger. And if I say no, then you say no. His voice softened. I won't pressure you, but I think you'd be walking away from something extraordinary. Not just the job. The chance to prove that you're more than you think you are. How did he know that was exactly what I needed to hear? I looked down at the contract, then back up at him. Those gray eyes held a challenge, a dare, and something else I couldn't quite name. I have conditions, I said. His smile was slow and devastating. I'd expect nothing less. Luna gets a promotion, head pastry chef. Done. And I maintain creative control. You can't overrule my designs just because they're not Thornton standard. Agreed, within reason. And I took a breath. If this gets weird, I can walk away. No hard feelings. Something flickered in his expression. Weird? You know what I mean. We stared at each other, the air between us crackling with unspoken tension. Deal, he said finally, extending his hand. I took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm, and when our skin touched, I felt that jolt again. That sense that everything was about to change. Welcome to Thornton Plaza, Miss Hartwell. Maggie, I whispered. Call me Maggie. His smile could have melted steel. Welcome aboard, Maggie. Working with Dashiell Thornton was like dancing with a thunderstorm, exhilarating, dangerous, and you never knew when lightning would strike. My first official day, he gave me an office. Not a cubicle, not a desk in a shared space. An actual office with windows overlooking Central Park. Luna nearly fainted when she visited during her lunch break. This is bigger than our entire apartment, she whispered, running her hand along the mahogany desk. I know. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. He must really want to impress you. He wants to impress potential investors, I corrected. I'm just the authenticity consultant, remember? But Luna's knowing smile said she didn't believe me for a second. The first week was a whirlwind of meetings, tastings, and design sessions. Dashiell was demanding, perfectionist, and frustratingly right about most things, but he also listened. Really listened. When I suggested making the new restaurant's menu more accessible, featuring comfort food elevated with quality ingredients instead of molecular gastronomy, he didn't dismiss it. He leaned back, studied me with those intense gray eyes, and said, "Show me." So I did. I spent 3 days creating a full concept presentation. Hand-drawn illustrations of dishes, mood boards, even a sample menu with prices that wouldn't require a second mortgage. Friday afternoon, I was scheduled to present to Dashiell and his executive team. I'd presented to clients before, but never with stakes this high. My hands were shaking as I set up the conference room. "Nervous?" Dashiell's voice came from the doorway. I jumped, nearly dropping my portfolio. "You're early." "I'm always early." He walked in, and I noticed he'd loosened his tie. It made him look less intimidating, almost human. "I wanted to see your presentation before the vultures arrive." "Your executive team are vultures?" "Most of them, yes." He gestured to my boards. "May I?" I stepped aside, watching as he examined each illustration, reading every word of my concept proposal. His face revealed nothing, and the silence stretched until I couldn't take it anymore. "It's too casual, isn't it? Too simple. You probably wanted something more." "It's perfect." I blinked. "What?" He turned to me, and there was something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Warmth. Pride, even. "This is exactly what I hoped you'd create. It's genuine, accessible, but still sophisticated. It feels like—" He paused, searching for words. "Like coming home to something wonderful." My heart did a weird flip in my chest. "Really? Really?" He moved closer, pointing to one of my illustrations, a rustic lasagna with steam rising from golden cheese. "This drawing alone makes me hungry. Makes me remember Sunday dinners at my grandmother's house before everything became about business and appearances." It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with me. "You had a grandmother who cooked?" I tried to lighten the moment. "I assumed you were raised by a butler and a stock portfolio." He laughed, that rare, genuine laugh that transformed him. "I had a very normal childhood, believe it or not. My grandmother Rosie made the best lasagna in Brooklyn. Then my father's business took off. We moved to Manhattan and—" He shrugged. "Everything changed. Do you miss it? The before?" His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw past the billionaire facade to something vulnerable underneath. Every day. The air between us shifted, charged with an intimacy that had nothing to do with business. We were standing close enough that I could see gold flecks in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from him. "Dashiell," I whispered, not even sure what I was going to say. The conference room door burst open. "Sorry I'm late." A woman breezed in, tall, elegant, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my contract. She stopped when she saw us, her perfectly painted lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dash, darling. I didn't realize you'd started without me." Dashiell stepped back smoothly, his expression shuddering. "Clarissa, you're right on time. Maggie, this is Clarissa Beaumont, our head of investor relations." Clarissa's handshake was limp, her appraisal thorough and dismissive. "So, you're the tart girl. How quaint." The way she said quaint made it sound like an insult. "And you're the investor relations girl," I replied sweetly. "How diplomatic." Dashiell coughed to cover what might have been a laugh. Over the next hour, the rest of the executive team arrived, and I gave my presentation. Most were receptive, asking good questions, offering constructive feedback. But Clarissa picked apart every element, from my amateurish illustrations to my unrealistic pricing structure. "Our clientele expects luxury," she said, her tone dripping condescension. "Not diner food with delusions of grandeur." "It's not diner food," I countered, keeping my voice steady. "It's elevated comfort food that appeals to a broader demographic while maintaining quality and—" "I think what Clarissa means," Dashiell interrupted, his voice cold, "is that this concept represents a significant departure from our current brand identity, which is precisely the point." He turned to Clarissa. "The market research supports this direction." Our focus groups responded overwhelmingly positively to the authentic, approachable angle. Clarissa's smile was tight. "Of course, Dash, you know best." But the look she gave me promised this wasn't over. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, Dashiell caught my arm. "Don't let Clarissa get to you. She's threatened by change. Or by me," I said, before I could stop myself. His expression was unreadable. "Why would she be threatened by you?" "Because she clearly has feelings for you," I thought. "Because I'm the interloper disrupting her perfectly ordered world. Because the way you look at me isn't the way you look at her." "No reason," I said instead. "Just forget it." But as I walked back to my office, I could feel Clarissa's cold gaze following me, and I knew instinctively that I just made my first real enemy. Clarissa struck 3 days later. I arrived at my office Monday morning to find my presentation boards gone. Not misplaced, gone. In their place was a note in elegant handwriting. "Perhaps you should focus on what you're actually qualified for." Sibby. My blood pressure spiked. Those boards represented weeks of work, hours of detailed illustrations I'd poured my heart into. I stormed down to investor relations, ready for war. Clarissa's assistant tried to stop me. "Miss Beaumont is in a meeting." "I don't care if she's meeting with the Queen of England." I pushed past her and threw open Clarissa's door. She was indeed in a meeting, with 3 men in expensive suits, who all turned to stare at me. Clarissa's expression was pure satisfaction. "Miss Hartwell, how unprofessional. Gentlemen, please excuse the interruption. Our consultant hasn't quite grasped corporate etiquette yet." "Where are my boards?" I demanded. "Boards?" She blinked innocently. "I have no idea what you're referring to. The presentation materials from my office, the ones that mysteriously disappeared. Perhaps you misplaced them. Artists can be so disorganized." She turned back to her meeting. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we're discussing actual business." I wanted to flip her perfect desk over. Instead, I smiled. "Of course. My apologies, gentlemen. I'll just check the security footage from my office hallway. I'm sure that will clear everything up." Clarissa's composure cracked for just a second. Bullseye. I left, shaking with rage, and nearly collided with Dashiell in the hallway. "Whoa." His hands caught my shoulders, steadying me. "What's wrong? You look like you're about to commit murder." "Your head of investor relations stole my work." His jaw tightened. "Come with me." He led me to his office, closed the door, and gestured for me to sit. I was too agitated, pacing instead while I explained everything. When I finished, Dashiell's expression was granite. "Wait here." He was gone for 20 minutes. When he returned, he was carrying my boards, perfectly intact. "They were in a storage closet on Clarissa's floor," he said quietly, "hidden behind old files." Relief and vindication flooded through me. "So you believe me?" "Of course I believe you." He set the boards down carefully. "Maggie, I'm sorry. Clarissa's behavior is unacceptable. Are you going to fire her?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The first time I'd seen him look less than perfectly composed. "It's complicated. Her father is our largest investor. If I fire her without ironclad proof..." "So she gets away with it because of who her daddy is?" I heard the bitterness in my voice. "Must be nice having that kind of protection." "You think I'm protecting her?" His voice was sharp. "I'm protecting you. If I fire her now, she'll retaliate, and her father could pull his investment. That means layoffs, canceled projects, people losing their jobs, including Luna." That stopped me cold. "I will handle Clarissa," he continued, his tone softer. "But I need to do it the right way. Can you trust me on this?" I wanted to argue. But looking at him, at the genuine concern in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, I realized he was caught between impossible choices. "Okay," I said quietly. "I trust you." Something shifted in his expression. "You do?" "Yeah, surprisingly." I managed a weak smile. "Don't make me regret it." He moved closer, and suddenly the air felt thinner. "Maggie, I need you to know something. You're not just a consultant to me. You're..." He paused, seeming to struggle with words. "You're important. What you bring to this company, your perspective, Your honesty, it matters. You matter. My heart was doing gymnastics. Dashiell, and I will not let anyone, including Clarissa Beaumont, make you feel like you don't belong here. We were standing so close now. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that I could see the storm brewing in those gray depths. "Why?" I whispered. "Why do you care so much?" He lifted his hand, and for one breathless moment, I thought he might touch my face. Instead, he curled his fingers into a fist and dropped it. "Because someone needs to believe in you as much as you believed in those tarts." It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me, wrapped in the least romantic packaging possible. I laughed, breaking the tension. "Did you just compare me to a dessert?" His lips quirked. "I've been told I'm not good at this." "At what?" "At..." He gestured vaguely between us. "Whatever this is." My breath caught. So he felt it too. This pull, this connection, this impossible thing blooming between a billionaire and a broke illustrator. "Maybe that's okay," I said softly. "Maybe we're both figuring it out as we go." His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. "You should get that," I said, even though every fiber of my being wanted him to ignore it again. He checked the screen and cursed softly. "Board meeting in 5 minutes. I have to." "Go, I understand." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Maggie, have dinner with me tonight. Not a business dinner, just dinner." My heart stopped, started, did a complete somersault. Like a date? Yes, like a date. His smile was nervous, uncertain, so different from his usual confidence it made him somehow more attractive. "If you want." I absolutely wanted, more than I'd wanted anything in a long time. "Pick me up at 7, I said. His smile could have lit up Manhattan. 7 it is. After he left, I stood in his office for a full minute, grinning like an idiot at my reflection in the window. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text message was short. "Stay away from what's mine or you'll regret it." My smile faded. Clarissa clearly wasn't done playing games, but neither was I. I changed outfits 7 times before Dashiell arrived. Luna sat on my bed providing commentary. Too casual, too formal. Too, I'm trying too hard. Too, I'm not trying at all. "You're not helping," I wailed, standing in my underwear surrounded by a mountain of rejected clothes. "Wear the green dress, the one that makes your eyes pop." "That dress is from a thrift store." "So? He's already seen you covered in champagne and flour. I think he can handle vintage." She was right. I slipped into the emerald dress, added simple jewelry, and was applying lipstick when the buzzer rang. My hands started shaking. "Breathe," Luna commanded. "It's just dinner." With my boss. My billionaire boss, who I might have feelings for. This is a terrible idea. It's the best idea. She pushed me toward the door. "Now go before I steal him for myself." Dashiell was waiting in the lobby, and oh God, he looked good. Dark jeans. I'd never seen him in jeans. A charcoal sweater, and a leather jacket that made him look less like a corporate titan and more like a dangerously handsome stranger. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Wow, you look... wow." I laughed, my nervousness easing slightly. "Articulate as always." "You scramble my brain," he admitted, offering his arm. "It's disconcerting." We ended up at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Nothing like the 5-star establishments I'd expected. "My grandmother used to bring me here," Dashiell explained as we settled into a corner booth. "Best carbonara in the city. I hope you don't mind that it's not fancy." "Are you kidding? This is perfect." And it was. Intimate, warm, real. Over pasta and wine we talked. Really talked. Not about business or hotels or presentations, but about everything else. I learned he'd wanted to be an architect before his father died, and he inherited the company at 25. He learned I dreamed of being a children's book illustrator but couldn't afford art school. "Show me," he said suddenly. "Show you what?" "Your illustrations. The ones you do for yourself, not for clients." I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and showed him my secret Instagram account. Whimsical drawings of city life, anthropomorphic vegetables having adventures, a series about a lonely cloud making friends. He studied each one carefully, a smile growing on his face. "These are magical, Maggie. Why aren't you publishing these?" "Because magical doesn't pay rent. It could. It should." He looked at me intently. "You're so talented. Do you know that?" No one had ever looked at my work, my real work, with such genuine admiration. My throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you," I whispered. His hand found mine across the table, warm and solid. "I mean it. You light up everything you touch." We stayed until the restaurant closed, talking and laughing until my cheeks hurt. When we finally left, Dashiell insisted on walking me home despite the late hour. "I had a really good time tonight," I said as we reached my building. "So did I." He still hadn't let go of my hand. "Maggie, I need to be honest with you about something." My stomach dropped. Here it came. "This was a mistake" speech. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the gala," he continued. "The way you stood up to me, the fire in your eyes, your absolute refusal to back down. And then working with you these past weeks, seeing your creativity, your passion, your kindness to everyone around you." He stepped closer. "You've turned my entire world upside down." "Dashiell, I know this is complicated. I'm your boss, you work for me. There are 1,000 reasons this is a bad idea. But I can't." He cupped my face gently with his free hand. "I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore." My heart was thundering so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I feel it too. This terrifying, wonderful, completely insane thing." His smile was pure relief and joy. "Yeah? Yeah. Can I kiss you?" Instead of answering, I rose on my tiptoes and kissed him first. It was everything. Soft and sweet, and then deeper. His arms wrapping around me, my hands in his hair. The world fell away until there was only us. Only this perfect moment under the streetlights of Brooklyn. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. "I should let you go inside," he murmured. "But I really don't want to." "Then don't. Not yet." We stood there for another 20 minutes, talking softly, stealing kisses, existing in our own bubble of happiness. Finally, reluctantly, I pulled away. "I really should go. Early meeting tomorrow. With me." He grinned. "I'm looking forward to it in a completely new way now." I laughed, kissed him one more time, and floated up to my apartment. Luna was waiting, demanding every detail. I was mid-story gushing about the kiss when my phone buzzed. A photo. Me and Dashiell, kissing outside my building. The caption, "How cute. Wait until the board sees this." The number was blocked, but I knew exactly who sent it. Clarissa was declaring war. The photo hit the company intranet at 8:47 a.m. By 9, it was the talk of every floor in Thornton Plaza. By 9:15, I was being summoned to an emergency board meeting. Dashiell met me outside the boardroom, his face tight with barely controlled fury. "Don't say anything in there. Let me handle this." "Dashiell, I'm not going to hide. Please." He caught my hand briefly, squeezed. "Trust me." The board consisted of 8 stone-faced executives, Clarissa's father, Thomas Beaumont, at the head of the table, and Clarissa herself, looking like the cat who caught the canary. "Mr. Thornton," Thomas began, his voice cold, "we're concerned about this situation. A romantic involvement with a consultant raises serious questions about professionalism and judgment." "My personal life is my own business," Dashiell replied evenly, "not when it affects company reputation." Thomas slid a tablet across the table. "We've already received media inquiries. Billionaire boss romances struggling artist. The optics are terrible. I flinched. Struggling artist. Like I was some gold digger. Miss Hartwell's professional qualifications are impeccable, Dashiell said. Her work has exceeded every expectation. Has it? Clarissa interrupted smoothly. Or are you just blinded by personal feelings? How can we trust any evaluation you give when you're sleeping with her? We're not, I started. Dashiell's hand on my arm stopped me. Miss Beaumont, that's inappropriate. What's inappropriate is this entire relationship. Thomas leaned back. Dashiell, you're putting us in an impossible position. Either Miss Hartwell leaves or we'll have to seriously reconsider our investment. The threat hung in the air. $40 million. Jobs. Luna's promotion. Everything. You can't be serious. Dashiell's voice was dangerously quiet. Completely serious. We can't have this scandal attached to the Thornton name during our expansion. Make your choice. I stood up. I'll resign. Maggie, no. Dashiell reached for me. It's fine. My voice was steady even though I was breaking inside. I don't want to cause problems for the company. See? She understands, Clarissa said sweetly. A professional would never have let it get this far. Something in me snapped. I turned to her, done playing nice. You know what, Clarissa? You're right. A professional wouldn't sabotage a colleague out of jealousy. A professional wouldn't steal someone's work. A professional wouldn't stalk them and take creepy photos. I looked at the board. You want to talk about inappropriate? Let's talk about how she's been harassing me for weeks because she can't handle that Dashiell doesn't want her. Clarissa's face went crimson. That's a lie. Is it? Check your security footage. Check the threatening texts I've received from blocked numbers. Check which floor my presentation boards were found on. Thomas Beaumont's expression shifted. Clarissa, is this true? Daddy, she's making it up. The storage closet incident was real, Dashiell interjected. I have documentation. For the first time, Clarissa looked uncertain. I was just protecting company interests. By harassing an employee, another board member spoke up, an older woman I recognized as Mrs. Pemberton from the gala. Thomas, if your daughter has been engaging in workplace harassment, that's far more concerning than a consensual relationship between adults. The room erupted in argument. I slipped out, unable to watch anymore. I made it to my office before the tears came. I'd just quit the best job I'd ever had. Luna would be devastated. And Dashiell, the door flew open. Dashiell stood there, breathing hard like he'd run the entire way. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. Your company, your legacy. It's too important. You're important! He crossed to me in 3 strides. Maggie, I don't care about the board, or the investment or any of it if it means losing you. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more. He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing away my tears. The board can find other investors. I can rebuild. But you, there's only one you. Dashiell, be realistic. I am being realistic. These past weeks with you have been the realest thing in my life. You make me want to be better, do better, feel more. You make me remember who I was before I became this corporate machine. His voice cracked. You make me remember how to breathe. My heart was shattering and soaring at the same time. What are you saying? I'm saying I'll choose you. Over the company, over the money, over everything. I'll choose you every single time. You can't just watch me. He kissed me, desperate and fierce. We'll figure it out. Together, if you want to. Of course I want to, you idiot. I was crying and laughing at the same time. But I can't let you destroy everything you've built. My phone rang. Mrs. Pemberton's name flashed on the screen. Miss Hartwell? You'll want to come back to the boardroom. Things have taken an interesting turn. We returned to find Thomas Beaumont looking furious, Clarissa in tears, and Mrs. Pemberton smiling like a satisfied chess master. It seems, Mrs. Pemberton announced, that Miss Beaumont's harassment has been far more extensive than we realized. Security footage confirms multiple instances of workplace misconduct. Thomas has agreed to remove both himself and his daughter from any company involvement, effective immediately. My jaw dropped. But the investment will be replaced, another board member said. Several of us are prepared to increase our stakes. The Thornton Plaza doesn't need the Beaumonts. Thomas stood stiffly. Come, Clarissa. We're leaving. As they left, Clarissa shot me one final venomous look. But for once, I didn't care. As for you two, Mrs. Pemberton fixed us with a stern look that melted into warmth. I expect a wedding invitation when the time comes. Dashiell's hand found mine. You'll be the first to know. 6 months later, I stood in front of the newest Thornton restaurant, staring at the sign above the door. Magnolia's. You named it after me, I whispered, for the 100th time. Dashiell wrapped his arms around me from behind. I named it after the woman who changed my life. Seemed appropriate. The restaurant was everything I'd envisioned and more. Rustic wooden tables, Edison bulb lighting, walls covered with my illustrations, and a menu featuring elevated comfort food that made people feel at home. The kitchen was Luna's domain. She'd been promoted to executive chef and was currently inside, terrorizing her staff in the most loving way possible. Tonight was opening night, and I was terrified. What if nobody comes? I fretted. What if they hate the food? What if... Dashiell turned me around, kissing me quiet. Stop. It's going to be perfect. You're perfect. I'm a mess. You're my mess, he grinned. And for the record, we've been fully booked for 3 weeks. There's a wait list of over 200 people. Before I could respond, Luna burst through the door. Maggie, stop making out with your boyfriend and get in here. We're opening in 10 minutes, and I need you to approve the dessert presentation. The night was a blur of happy chaos. Every table was full. Critics raved. Guests took photos of their food to post on social media. Mrs. Pemberton came with a party of 20 and declared the lasagna better than anything in Italy. Around midnight, after the last guests had left and the staff was cleaning up, Dashiell pulled me onto the empty restaurant floor. Dance with me, he said softly. There's no music. He pulled out his phone, and soft jazz filled the space. We swayed together, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. I'm so proud of you, he murmured. You turned your dreams into reality. We did it together. No, you did the dreaming. I just gave you the platform. He pulled back slightly to look at me. Maggie, these past 6 months have been the best of my life. You've made me laugh more, feel more, live more than I ever thought possible. Dashiell, I'm not finished. He smiled nervously, that rare uncertainty that made him devastatingly human. When you stormed into that kitchen and called me a spoiled tyrant, I knew you were different. When you challenged me in front of 300 people, I knew you were brave. When you quit to protect me, I knew you were selfless. And somewhere between all of that, I fell completely, irrevocably in love with you. My breath caught. We'd said, I love you before, whispered in quiet moments. But this felt different. Bigger. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Oh my God. I know it's fast, he said, dropping to one knee. I know we've only known each other 6 months. I know I'm supposed to wait a year or two, or however long people are supposed to wait. But I've learned something from you. Life's too short to hide behind what you're supposed to do. Sometimes you have to be brave enough to reach for what you want. Tears were already streaming down my face. Magnolia Hartwell, you walked into my life in a second-hand dress and destroyed every wall I'd built around myself. You made me remember how to feel, how to dream, how to be human. You're my best friend, my partner, my home. He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring that caught the light like captured starlight. Will you marry me? Yes, I was crying and laughing and nodding all at once. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and stood, lifting me into a kiss that felt like every romantic movie ending ever. except better because it was real, and it was ours. Luna's scream of joy echoed from the kitchen. "I knew it! I called it at the gala!" We broke apart, laughing, as Luna rushed out, followed by the entire kitchen staff, who apparently had been spying. "To Maggie and Dashiell!" Luna raised a bottle of champagne. The most chaotic, beautiful love story I've ever witnessed. As everyone cheered and champagne flowed and my best friend hugged me tight, I looked at Dashiell across the room. He was laughing with the staff, relaxed and happy in a way I'd never seen him that first night at the gala. He caught my eye and mouthed, "I love you." I mouthed it back, touching the ring on my finger. 6 months ago, I'd walked into a charity gala expecting free food and left with a ruined dress, a new job, and the beginning of something impossible. Now, standing in a restaurant bearing my name, engaged to the man I loved, surrounded by people who'd become family, I realized something. Sometimes the best things in life come from the moments when everything goes spectacularly, beautifully wrong. 1 year later, Magnolia's had expanded to 3 locations. My children's book about a brave little tot who stood up to a grumpy chef had become a bestseller. Luna was dating the restaurant sommelier and planning to open her own patisserie. And me. I was married to Dashiell Thornton in a small ceremony in Brooklyn at the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. Mrs. Pemberton cried. Luna was my maid of honor. And when Dashiell fed me wedding cake, a lemon tart naturally, everyone laughed. "Still think I'm a spoiled tyrant?" he whispered as we danced. "Absolutely," I whispered back. "But you're my spoiled tyrant. Forever?" I kissed him, tasting lemon and sugar and the promise of every tomorrow. Forever. The end.